Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host. Dune Part 2 is now out, and there's a lot of things in the film we need to talk about. Packing a massive ending, I want to discuss how this is probably going to play out in the future. Looking at Dune Messiah, we have a fair idea, and Denis Villeneuves confirmed the script's almost done. It teases a darker future for the Dune-iverse, and I think it's going to culminate and create an incredible trilogy. Throughout this video, we're going to break the book down and also talk about how we think some things may be changed. Heavy spoilers ahead, so if you don't want anything ruined, then I highly recommend that you turn off now. With that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into Dune Messiah.
This prophecy is how they enslave us! You are not prepared for what is to come.
So part 2 ends with a tease of Paul's holy war, which is something he's been plagued with visions about. The first film had him seeing it in the tent, and since then it's highlighted the destruction he could bring. Still though, he hasn't wavered from the path, and we saw as his warships ascended to the houses. Paul is about to give them a ticket to paradise, which of course means the guy's gonna send them to heaven. Shapow! Now, Messiah picks up 12 years after Paul's holy war has wiped out 61 billion. Across the universe, his followers murdered in his name, and he's now seen as the most powerful emperor ever. You see, Paul's combined several skills that he's learned from several groups, and he's now someone who is the supreme being. He was raised as a mentat, a powerful fighter, and also taught the ways of the Bene Gesserit. On top of this, he comes from a royal bloodline, but is also someone who became the Fremen leader. However, even with all his might, he's unable to put the monster back in the box. He's created a jihad that he sees will destroy humanity, and thus he's trying to put us on a course in which we can avoid it. However, you don't kill 61 people without making a few enemies, and there's several groups that also want to destroy him. This in its essence is one of the driving forces of Messiah, and we join a conspiracy between three powerful groups. That is the Bene Gesserit, Spacing Guild, and Tleilaxu, who have put a plan to oust Paul from his throne. As we saw in Dune Part 2, Irulan's part of their group, and she also doesn't mind going against her family. Yeah, that's also the case too, and Irulan acts as a double agent. She's desperate to have a child with Paul, which will then bring their child back into the Benny's breeding program. They were the ones who selected the bloodline that would eventually lead to the Kwisatz Haderach. This process went on for millennia, with the Kwisatz being someone who was supposed to be the child of Feyd and Lady Jessica's daughter. As we know though, she had a son instead, and this ended up destroying their well-laid plans. However, they see getting Irulan's kids as a way to regain control, and thus want to make sure that she secures the bloodline. Now on the other side of this, we also have Paul, who doesn't want kids with her, and he's also having issues with Chani. He's seen having children ushers in her death, and thus doesn't want to go down this path with her. Irulan's instructed to drug Chani's food with contraceptives, and though Paul knows about it, he also allows it to happen. This is because he's going to do whatever he can to save her, but Paul's still plagued by these visions. In the end, Chani ends up switching to a Fremen fertility diet, which then stops Irulan from drugging it. Now the second part of the plan comes in the form of a Gola, which is basically an artificial human who may be made into a clone. The group have created one of Duncan Idaho, and they present this to Paul as a gift. Accepting this makes him seem weak to the Fremen, as they're the people who have beef with the Tleilaxu. Keep pronouncing that wrong, can't pronounce it, I've only just read it, and I'm sorry mate, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Anyway, Duncan also now gets called hate, and he makes Paul question himself and his rule. They tell him flat out that the Gola is a Gola, and herein lies their little trick. They want to see if Paul will still be swayed by it, and it's one of the most manipulative stories in the saga. Guy's basically being catfish, but told he's being catfish, but he still believes there's a chance that it is Katy Perry. Do you remember that episode? It was a bit of a weird one, but he hopes that they can make up for lost time. Now it's during this that the atomic weapons come into play, which Villeneuve leaned into heavily for Part 2. They were outlawed after the Butlerian Jihad, and they spoke to the fear that people had of nukes at the time. Paul orders that his conspirators are taken down, and they fire back with an atomic that's known as a stone burner. This ends up blinding Paul, however, due to his abilities, he is still able to see without his eyes. Because Paul can predict everything that could happen, he's able to perceive the world around him. For example, if he was going to walk into a wall, bonk, he'd see it before that happened, so he'd turn away from it and is able to navigate around it. Now it's here when the truth about hate comes into play, as he's got a sort of Winter Soldier Manchurian candidate thing going on with him. MKUltra was also a big thing at the time, with the CIA carrying out experiments with LSD. This was in order to try and create sleeper cells, with hate basically being one of theirs. Chani ends up dying in childbirth, and it's in this that hate gets triggered. He ends up attacking Paul, but he's able to break free from control when Duncan's deeper subconsciousness rises to the surface. Now it's in this that Chani also gave birth to twins, which was something Paul wasn't able to foresee. The name Leto and Ganima, with the former of course being a reference to his dad, who was a character absent from Part 2, and that was Paul's first son Leto. He was killed during a raid, and therefore this second one's called Leto II. Gets confusing, and I can see why Denis exercised the second Leto, because then you've got 3 characters that are all called Leto. So I think missing out the first Leto, and then just giving us the second Leto, it kind of just makes more sense. Now, due to them being his children, they're also born with his full abilities. The pair have complete access to their ancestral memories, and possess the power of the Kwisatz Haderach. Paul also gets the offer to bring back Chani as a Gola, but he refuses to do it. He's already seen how one Gola can be weaponized, and would rather avoid the chance of that happening again. His children are held at knife point though to force him to accept, but using his son's eyes he's able to see where the assassin is. He takes him out, and that saves the day, but the death of Chani weighs heavily on him. Now, a character that I've skipped over is Alia, who's obviously going to play a big part in Messiah. They actually changed things up with her fair a bit, as she wasn't born during Part 2. Thus, I think Messiah is going to have a part with her in which we have a flashback to her being born, as it's a crucial part of the books. I'm also surprised that they didn't have her kill the Baron, as it is a major part of her character development. He's actually her grandfather, and it shows how deadly she is even as a kid. Now, the books have her tapping into the religious dogma and building up a cult around herself. Throughout Messiah, she ends up falling for Feyd, and come the end of the piece, the pair fall in love.
I mean, there's a joke there somewhere, for sure.
She orders to have the conspirators executed, but Paul says that they should be spared. This includes Princess Erlan, who in the end steps away from the Benny. This means that their control of the family has now ceased, and their ties to the bloodline have been completely removed. Erlan ends up swearing loyalty to the Atreides and decides to dedicate her life to caring for Paul's kids. Paul ends up leaving Alia in charge, and we close out as he wanders into the desert. In Fremen society, it's thought that no one should be a burden, and thus the blind often used to carry this out. Though the tradition was ended, Paul still ends up doing it, and he instructs that his children should rule once they get old enough. Alia will act as regent until they get old enough, and it basically ensures the future of humanity. Paul has now shown that he's simply just a man and has resigned himself to a fate that won't create a martyr. Thus, this holy war will come to an end, and he's someone who will no longer be deified. However, his family will still be leaders, and it's something that will also pull the Fremen in line. Instead of beginning to see him as weak, they'll follow his kids and thus support his lineage. So yeah, that's basically the full story until we get into Children of Dune. Denis not expressed any interest in doing it, and honestly, I don't think they will. Spoilers for that. Wait, I'll give you a second to duck out in case you don't want to know. So spoilers for that. But are you still here? Well, the spoilers are basically that Leto ends up evolving into a sandworm.
Do you understand? Seriously, you need to be a neuroscientist to understand. And that's 2.5 hours of my life that I want back. I want it back.
That's what happens, and he rules the kingdom for 3,000 years and manages to steer humanity away from its destruction. I think that Denis can just hint towards them doing good in the future of Messiah and have Paul be like, I'm off to the desert now, leaving the kids in charge, and then he can just say like, they're the ones who usher humanity away from destruction, and just don't look up any of the books about them becoming a sandworm, mate. So yeah, that's how I think they could do it. It will obviously not ruin the trilogy, and it'll be a perfect way to close out Paul's arc. I don't know, some people like Children of Dune, but I think it would be a bit weird to adapt into a film. Paul actually also returns for Children of Dune, and he starts off as a blind preacher. No one knows it's him, though some people do suspect, but when it's revealed it's Paul, it comes as a big twist. In a book though, it's easy to do that, whereas in a film, you can instantly tell that it's him. Look mate, I'm not stupid, I can say it's bloody him. So I think just teasing that we're getting a happy ending in Messiah, that's the best way to close out the trilogy rather than bringing in that fourth film. Controversial, I know mate, bloody controversial, and if you enjoy Children of Dune, then let me know below. Also, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Part 2, and also what you want to see happening in that third film. Please drop a like on the video, and if you want to support the channel as a member of the Spoiler Society, then please click the join button. You'll get early access to videos just like this every week. It's just 99 cents a month, and it goes such a long way to helping us out. If you want to get some heavy spoilers merch, we've also got our t-shirt line located below the video that will let you pick up all kinds of tops like our Theory Time one, House of Dragons stuff, Marvel tees and more. We drop new designs on there all the time too, so definitely keep an eye out, and thanks for your support. Now if you want something else to watch, we've got a big breakdown on the movie which will be linked on screen right now. We talk about all the differences to the books, the big character arcs, and yet lots of things that might add a bit more to the movie that will hopefully help you appreciate it. By the way, huge thank you for sticking through the video. I've been your host Paul, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.